with R.J. Ron Joseph. I'm looking at this article. This is from the Delaware County Daily Times. I suppose this is from, what, the 1970s or 80s? Area teenager grows up to be traveling Dick Clark. And there is that map that we saw on an earlier installment.
Where all the cities that carried our show, yes.
And at one time or another, your shows were seen in all of these
major markets.
American cities.
Right.
All around.
12 to 20 of the major markets.
And right here, this is saying Dateline Yaden.
Yeah.
And interesting stuff.
I've been everywhere. They're showing I was a gypsy with my television cameras all over the country.
So this is probably from the late 70s or early 80s because
that's correct.
It's talking about your being on Channel 17 at the time, Willingboro Country Club. So what was that, early 80s?
Yeah.
Okay.
About 82-ish.
And let's go down here. Now, we're going to fast forward a few years. Yeah. I guess this will take us to the early 90s, and we've talked about Channel 7 before.
Very, very big part of my life. Channel 7. On top of the Mellon Building and over at 1818 Market Street and Liberty 1 and 2.
Now, I don't know what paper this is, but judging from the typeface, it looks like the South Philadelphia Review-Chronicle.
That's correct.
I recognize the typeface. So here is an article about Channel 7 after it has finally gotten on the air.
We had to do a lot of experimental tests.
And what's interesting here about the fact that there it is right there, Review Chronicle. The fact that it was a South Philadelphia paper is important because South Philadelphia was one of the areas in which Channel 7 had a very strong signal.
Right, that is correct.
And here is a picture. I think we saw this same picture in another installment of you on top of, is this 1818?
That's correct.
1818 Market Street.
And next to it, also another shot of myself with where our transmitters were at the very top with our satellite dish. And that's, I believe, Philadelphia Inquirer.
This is, okay, so this is what, the continuation of the same article, I think?
No, two different.
Two different articles.
Yeah.
Now let's move up here.
I was very fortunate to get mentioned in all these newspapers.
Now that I know is the Daily News.
Yeah, you can tell.
What me worry.
Yeah, they wondered why. Wouldn't you have a lot of worry being a low power? Absolutely not.
Now, did you take that as a knock on Channel 7?
Yeah,
the reference to Alfred E. Newman and the low power. Did that bother you at all?
No. It was wonderful to get the publicity. You know, Dick Clark taught me one thing. No matter what they say, long they spell your name correctly.
Well, it's hard to misspell R.J.
Isn't that correct?
Now, here, this is interesting here. I just want to delve into this for a moment here. The Daily News article is giving some examples of some of the admittedly quirky programming that was on in the early days of Channel 7. But right here, a reference to a record unmistakably associated with you, R.J., Gloria Gaynor, You're My Honeybee.
That was I love it.
I think you were the only disc jockey who still plays that record.
And she never wanted me to play it because she never made money out of it. She said it never sold.
A very underrated song. Early disco. What was that, 74?
Yeah,
73
came out.
Early disco, early disco.
But I loved it. You're my honeybee.
But the article here talking about the fact that you picked up some music programming out of Canada.
That's
your
correct.
Own disco shows. Was it much music?
Much more music from Canada. I was one of the only, United States station that carried Canadian MTV. That's all it was. We got special permission.
And then I think many of us have seen this one on an earlier one, the Inquirer article.
Yeah. High hopes for low power. We were never on cable. We pulled a heck of a lot of viewers.
And this one, I don't remember this, though. So you were looking for
video
jocks, sort of like in the early days of MTV?
Exactly.
But Channel 7, never on cable, though. I believe you were on Pop Vision for a time right? For a time.
But let me tell you, we've received more accolades for people going out of their way to get the station with rabbit ears or rooftops.
Well, there's something to be said for that. I was talking with someone who runs one of the sub-channel networks that is popular these days on the HD sub-channels that shows the old reruns. And he was saying about how the fact that people will go out of their way to install antennas, to rip out the cable that they're paying for, rip it out because they want to see your programming. That is quite a compliment.
Well, that's what we had.
Right here, a quick shot of the TTC transmitter.
That was the small transmitters we operated on.
So when people in Center City and South Philadelphia, Delaware County, watched Channel 7 over the air, it came from a box looking just like this, attached to an antenna, high atop, at first Liberty One, later Market Street in the Mellon Bank building.
Well, we went to the most prominent part of Philadelphia, the predominance of population, and we went to the highest buildings that we could get to get our signal out. Yeah.
And is this a This would be, I guess, a receiving antenna.
Receiving and sending, yeah.
I remember in the early days of Channel 7, you were giving out, and you gave me one because I still have it, an antenna that was cut specifically for that frequency.
Yeah, we're talking shop today now. No one knows what we're talking about, but yeah.
And I guess these days, with everything being digital, most people wouldn't have any use for that information, but it's still interesting to know the way it used to be, of course.
I have heritage in this town. I really feel that we accomplished something, being the first low power and serving almost 1 million people when they wanted to cut away from their cable and put their AB switch in. Do you know what an AB switch is?
Sure, to switch from the cable to the antenna.
That's right. Nothing